Okay, we're going to get started for our 2:20 session here this afternoon. Topic of today's session is the importance of grassroots development projects for the growth of soccer in the U.S. My name is Glenn Gray, Senior Vice President with Buffalo.Agency, sports marketing firm based in the Washington, D.C. area. Also a youth soccer coach, so not only do I get to be a moderator, I get to be a student of the three gentlemen here with me today. To my immediate left, Kevin Payne became U.S. Club Soccer's CEO in January 2015. Payne's career includes more than 30 years of high-profile executive leadership positions within the U.S. Soccer Federation and Major League Soccer. He adds invaluable expertise and experience to the U.S. Club Soccer front office based in Charleston, South Carolina. Next to him is Hugo Blanco, La Liga's Sports Projects Manager. He holds a Ph.D. in Science of Physical Activity and Sport. He's a UEFA Pro coach and an expert in methodology training. He's also been a director in different public and private facilities and has extensive experience with the Galatian Football Federation. And last but not least, Nico Garcia M., and he is a sports and media executive currently serving as the VP of Strategy and Business Development of La Liga North America, a joint venture between Relevant Sports Group and La Liga based in New York. Previously, Nico served as the head of La Liga Global Network, a multicultural international project composed of 50 people spread across 44 countries. So we don't have a lot of time, and we've got a lot of exciting things to talk about today, so just want to kind of jump right in, and I'm going to start with Nico. Can you give us just a brief overview of La Liga's general strategy here in the U.S. and specifically how you're integrating some of the soccer development programs?
Sure. Thanks, Glenn, for being with us today. Good evening, everyone. So I would like to start, as our CEO said yesterday, that we cannot come every 4 years to try to deal for our rights and disappear and then come back and see how much value our rights have. So that's why we really believe that we need to be here in the country. We have an agreement with Relevant Sports, which is a 15-year deal, just to show the commitment that we have with the market. And we have developed a 4-pillar strategy, basically based on TV distribution, see how we can increase the awareness of La Liga through our broadcaster, which is beIN Sports. We have an amazing digital strategy with 9 weekly shows that happen every week on different digital platforms. We have a strategy of events and activation, where what we are basically trying to do is bring something tangible for our fans here in the US, so trying to have something that it matters to them, having in mind that our matches happen in Europe really far away, and it's complicated sometimes with the time. And the 4th pillar is the soccer development projects. So for us, it's important that we can, I don't like to say teach, but share the way we live and we teach soccer in Europe and in Spain, and see if that can help the market to continue growing the sport, which in the end is going to be beneficial for all of us, not only for La Liga, but for other European leagues and domestic league also.
So we were chatting a little bit before this session. What are a couple of those key programs, and to date, what has been the success of those?
Okay, so we are going to the U.S. Club Soccer deal, the last one, if you don't mind. But basically, we have long-term and short-term projects. We have academies here in the U.S. We have one in Miami, and we have another one in Toronto, which are like long-term projects where we are trying to, with our technical director that are based here in Miami and another one in Canada, trying to share our methodology, how we develop our programs, and how we develop our players. Then we also have other projects like with Alianza de Fútbol, which is one of the biggest Hispanic tournament in the US that runs over 10 cities. We selected 18 players that are outside of the pay-to-play model, and we sent them to Spain for 10 days, where they were playing with other La Liga teams, with scouters of these teams, to see if there's enough talent to give them an opportunity in a La Liga team. And we also have the agreement that we have with US Club Soccer, which I think is the most successful one, which since the last 3 years we have been teaching different coaches in the US about our methodology, about our programs, and just, as I say, share with them how we do things and see if it's interesting for them to apply in their academies and in their schools. In the end, when you go to the player, it's good, but when you go to the coaches, the reach that you have with the players is bigger. So that's why it makes sense for us.
I've been fortunate enough to get to know Kevin very well over the past couple of years, and Kevin has a a very impressive resume and his experience here in the North American soccer industry, one of the most successful executives, one of the founders of MLS, winning 4 MLS Cups with DC United. And so, from the professional game, how did you end up at U.S. Club Soccer? What was that transition? What was that path like? And then certainly want to talk more about specifically U.S. Club Soccer and the background there.
Well, I spent 20 plus years in MLS, and during that time, among other things, I was the chairman of the technical committee for U.S. Soccer. So I'd spent a lot of time talking to people about how we could improve the manner in which we trained players in the United States. So when the opportunity came along to join U.S. Club Soccer, I thought, well, here's a chance for me to actually, put into practice some of the things that I thought we could do better in American soccer. And I certainly don't have all the answers, but there's a lot of people in the U.S. Club Soccer environment that have lived with these issues every single day for many years. And it's a group of people that are very committed to doing a better job. So I saw an opportunity to affect the game at a different level than I had been focused on in the past.
And U.S. Club Soccer registers about 500,000 players annually, 75,000 elite coaches. Can you tell us a little bit more about U.S. Club Soccer?
Well, U.S. Club Soccer was founded in 2001, long before I was involved. And the basis of it was, there was 3 founding principles. One was that soccer decisions should be made by soccer people. The second was that local decisions should be made locally. And the third was that the sport required professional management. So those things were very different than what had been the norm in the youth soccer space in the United States. So it was a very different approach. But the biggest difference really is that it's an organization that is dominated by coaches, by directors of coaching in particular. In order to be on our board, you have to be a director of coaching. You have to have done that for 5 years. It's a very soccer-specific organization.
And there's the U.S. soccer industry at the youth level is very diverse, very fragmented at times, but what is the specific role that U.S. Club Soccer plays among U.S. Youth, AYSO, and some of the others?
Well, we are what's called a National Association member, so we're the same as USYSA or AYSO. We registered players nationally, which is a little different than the way USYS, for instance, is structured. And we now have become the second largest youth organization after USYS, which is really made up of 55 states. But we have members in every single state in the country, at least 1,000 in all 50 states. And our numbers grow substantially on a regular basis. So there's about almost 5,000 clubs that are in our registration system right now.
And one of the key pieces of carrying out the mission and vision of U.S. Club Soccer is their partnership with La Liga, which we're going to go very deep on this afternoon. But before we do that, what are maybe some of the other programs, events, competitions, things that U.S. Club Soccer does to help achieve those goals?
Well, we have a wide variety of competitions. On the boys' side, our highest level competition is called ENPL. That's actually a competition at the end of the season that brings together our boys' NPL winners and the boys' ECNL winners, and they play. It's really the only competition in the U.S. at the youth level that brings together 2 different leagues, 2 different organizational leagues to compete at the end of the season. And on the girls' side, it's the NPL. We also have cup play because kids like that. We don't think it's a particularly important piece of development, but teams enjoy it and kids enjoy it, so we make that available. Our biggest effort in recent years has been focused on our Players First, which was intended to create a branded youth soccer experience where parents could understand what their kids were in for when they joined a club that was a Players First club. And the idea is to encourage clubs to develop an environment and a culture around the club in which they are focused on making every player the best player that they can be. And that the parent is a very important part of that process.
So what I'd like to talk about more so today is specifically the La Liga and U.S. Club partnership. Can you talk a little bit about how U.S. club soccer and La Liga first connected and what that partnership's like. Just start us off there, Kevin, and then want to hear more from Nico as well.
We were introduced to La Liga by Nike, actually, in the spring of 2015, shortly after I had joined the organization. And I went to Madrid and sat down with Adolfo Barra at the time, who was the director of international marketing for La Liga. And La Liga asked me a question that I'd been involved in dealing with leagues, and particularly with clubs, for almost 30 years, bringing them into the country. La Liga asked me a question I had never been asked before, which was, how can we help U.S. soccer? Everybody else just asks, how can we make money? But La Liga took a different approach, which I was very, having been involved in the game for a long time, I was taken aback, but in a good way. So I said, I think your league has demonstrated that you are, if you're not the best league in terms of developing players, you're certainly among the best. And that's an area where we need some help. Our coaches need to better understand what is the process, what's the methodology, how do you go about taking players who are just interested in the game and helping them improve at every step of the process until hopefully at the end of the process you have high-level professional players remaining. So that's where we came up with the idea for the methodology courses and the La Liga coaching courses. Hugo became involved with us fairly soon after we began the project. There's been a lot of technical people involved. I've assisted really in helping understand how we could scale this in the country and what the politics are within the local soccer scene. But there's been a lot of other people that have done the really hard work, which is creating the coursework itself. So we think, we always look for a magic wand in American soccer. There is no magic wand. But if there was one thing that I could change, I would try to make our coaches better. I think that if we want better players, we need better coaches. France is the first one that kind of arrived at that conclusion. Spain adopted that same approach. Germany, Belgium, all the countries that have taken a systematic approach to improving the quality of their players all began with the fundamental understanding that if we want better players, we need better coaches. And if we want better coaches, we have to adopt a program to help develop better coaches.
Absolutely. Well said. Nico?
Just highlight on top of what Kevin has already said that it's part of the mission of helping grow the sport here. We understand that this is good for all. It's not like only for La Liga. It's not only going to help us because some of these coaches are going to come to their academies and they're going to continue to teach with their kids. So it's not like really affecting us in the business side, if you want, but in the long term, for sure, it's affecting us. Going deeper in the agreement, and maybe Hugo can jump onto this after. We started with developing coach education, which 3 levels. Level 3, which is the basic one, just pre-academy level if you want. Level 2, which is more in a competitive level and with academies. And level 1, which we have done talent ID, professional competition clubs, so these kind of topics. We will run after about new projects that we have on board, but it shows the commitment. It's not just we go with the club or with an association, we run a course and we leave. We try to have year after year and with time between these actions for the coaches to assimilate it and kind of apply it to their academies and see how it works. Now we are exploring also with US Club Soccer other projects with the Player First Union, trying to bring them to Spain, have an experience. So all of these ideas are coming to the table and I think are new ways of trying to help at every level, coaches, players, methodology. We also have, I think, an added value on top of what other clubs or leagues are doing is that we are close to some clubs and we involve them in these actions. So when we have, for example, a master class, which is a one-day event, we can have a pre-event with, I would say a streaming event with a coach from Betis that can connect and explain how he managed, I would say, goalkeeper methodology, and then he can come with us and with Hugo to develop this methodology in a practical session. So the added values of having La Liga here is that we are the ones that open the door to the other clubs when they want to work with us also, and that's very good, I think.
And I want to stay on that topic of methodology. As a youth soccer coach myself, I find it fascinating what different leagues are doing around the world, clubs, but then leagues specifically. And Hugo's an expert at that. So tell us a little bit about La Liga's methodology and then the impact that you think it can have here on the U.S. soccer industry.
Well, I think this was the first challenge that we need to overcome when we created the department 4 years ago. I remember the meeting with Kevin Payne when we speak about how to help U.S. club soccer to develop new coaches. And our expertise is the key, because nowadays I think the clubs of La Liga are the best in terms of youth development and player development. And we had a big responsibility to respect that they are doing nowadays, because it's not my methodology, it's not the methodology of my team. It's the methodology that respect all the methodologies of the clubs. And to do that, this big responsibility, to do that, we hired more than 50 people only to visit the clubs, in total 27 clubs, and identify different topics related with the facilities, related with the philosophy of the club, the history, but also related with methodology, the structure, how to create new contents to develop new players and good players. And after this study, we identify the common lines, the principal lines of intervention of the best clubs in our league, and we detect that to develop good players, we need to teach 100 concepts. These 100 concepts, in terms of technical, tactical, physical, but also psychological, this is an important point in this. We need to distribute all these 100 concepts in all the stages: under 8, under 10, under 12, under 14, and under 16, and under 19. And this was an amazing job of my team with the rest of the coaches that we hired. And nowadays we believe that our methodology is unique, because it's a very good methodology, but we can adapt this methodology to the characteristics of the countries, because it's not the same to be in Japan, in China, in South Africa than here in the United States, because sometimes the country is influenced by many factors. I think here they have a lot of options in terms of sport. They have basketball, they have baseball, they have American football, and the methodology that they are using in these sports is totally different that we are developing in our league. And to manage all of this is the key point. To do that, we need a big help. And for this, we are hiring a lot of coaches, more than 600 coaches these last 4 years, only to develop these programs. And with the help of U.S. Club Soccer here in the United States, we are teaching, I think, more than 1,500 coaches in 17 actions that we had. I'm really proud with the work that we are doing.
Yeah, it's been fascinating for myself to see it personally, and to talk about it is one thing, but to see it in action with some of the courses that Hugo has led here in the U.S., and I know Kevin's been a part of and involved with those events too. What have you seen from those La Liga methodology courses? What's been the impact across the U.S., and what type of benefit does that provide to your membership?
Well, I think it changes the way coaches in the U.S. think about their job. You know, the La Liga's methodology, I was talking to my wife about it, who is a professional teacher, one night, and I was kind of describing the things that they do that are different from the way coaches in this country in soccer have tended to approach their jobs. And she looked at me and she was like, well, yeah, of course, it's teaching. I mean, a lot of the progressions that they talk about and the periodization is very similar to what an academic teacher would do. You don't try to teach a kid, you know, geometry before they've learned algebra. And I think because our coaches for many, many, many years, our youth coaches, didn't understand their jobs. They thought their job was to win on Saturday. A lot of them still think that. They think they have the same job as Diego Simeone or Pep Guardiola. They don't understand that their job is really the one that people that we've never heard of have at those great clubs. And that's where those players are developed, by those coaches who understand that their role is to provide an environment in which every single player, every day, knows what they have to do in order to get better. And not every kid is going to be a world-class player. That's a given. But if you create an environment in which every kid can achieve their best, then you're not going to miss out on the kids who have the physical tools to become world-class.
So one of the exciting developments of these La Liga Methodology courses is something that Hugo's going to talk a little bit about in the opportunity for these coaches now to actually go to Spain and immerse themselves in the experience there. So can you talk a little bit about that, Hugo?
Yes, I think this is the cherry on the cake of our program. And I remember the first meetings working with the staff of US Club Soccer, with Benjamin Zimmer, with Christian Levers, with Kevin Payne, and how to structure this learning process of the coaches. We structure in three levels, but it's not basic, intermediate, and professional. It's focused in the first stages of the youth development program. After that, the next stages and high performance, because it's not the same to train Real Madrid in first division that Real Madrid in A-11 or under 10 team. And we think about how we can share the expertise of our coaches, professional coaches, and our clubs in 1 week. And we create this program. We are really proud of the program that we get. I think and I believe this is a unique program because only La Liga can get this program. And nowadays we are involved in this teaching or coaching education course. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Mallorca, Celta de Vigo, Athletic de Bilbao, Espanyol, these clubs are confirmed nowadays. And also we are going to complete these speakers or this agenda to do the theoretical sessions with visit to the club, because it's really important for us to share how they use the facilities, how they manage all the aspects of the club to teach the players and to develop the talent of the players. Now we have already confirmed Athletic de Madrid, Leganés, Valladolid, also Alcorcón. And this is complete because we believe it's a 360-degree experience. For this, we call this program La Liga Immersion, because they are going to have theoretical and practical session, but also they are going to watch matches, professional matches of first division, but also matches of the youth categories. I'm really proud, and I believe we are going to enjoy a lot this week.
Anything to add to that?
No, just I would like to highlight when Hugo was speaking about the psychological area or social area of the development. I was just sitting here in a panel with some European coaches and other coaches from the US, and all the coaches from the US were talking. The panel was focused about data scientists using data for improve the performance. And I think it was the friend from Schalke, or the other coach that came from Europe and is in a US team, that he was highlighting how important is the kids has to play. Outside of whatever data you have, outside of, for sure we use tools, we use data science, whatever, but in the end you have to let them play, and you have to let them make mistakes, and you have to let them enjoy, engage. It's a social act, and I think part of what Hugo always says is we live soccer. In Europe, soccer is part of our life. We don't teach it, we live it. And then we see how we can improve our development in soccer. And I think that's part of what La Liga Methodology can offer to the US, and what we are trying to share through US Club Soccer.
Yeah, and in just a couple weeks here, in the Miami area, US Club Soccer will be hosting their first Players First Summit with the 81 licensed clubs. So do you want to talk about that event that's coming up here?
Well, yeah, that's intended, as I mentioned earlier. The idea is to create a branded youth soccer experience. We want to encourage clubs to understand that they need to really work in a mindful way on an everyday basis at the environment and the culture of their club. And they need to engage parents in that. The parents are writing the checks. And this is where we differ a great deal from Europe. Players that are on a track, even at a relatively early age, on potentially a track to a professional career, those the resources that are dedicated to that training they're usually underwritten by professional clubs. So somebody always pays. Nothing's ever free. But in our country, generally it's the parents that are paying. So And the parents don't understand what their role is in that. And unfortunately, they often make the experience a worse one for their children. They don't mean that. You know, there's not too many parents that are sitting around at night at the dinner table saying, you know, how do we ruin Johnny's soccer experience? How should we do that? They want the best for their kids, but they don't understand what that means. And so we're trying to help clubs understand that, first of all, they need to be talking to parents all the time, not just at the beginning of the year when they tell them how much it costs, and the end of the year when they tell them where the pizza party is. They need to be engaged with them all the time so the parents can understand how they can best support their kids. I do think that that a point that Nico just made, and it's something that everybody I talk to in La Liga, and frankly in other countries that are good at this as well, but certainly in La Liga, and that includes everybody from the staff side to Raul, they all stress that football is a game. It's supposed to be fun. Mm-hmm. And it's really important that fun is a central element of the training process. Too often in our country, I think it's almost treated as a chore. This is homework. This is going to get you into college. And I think that too often we take the joy out of the game for our kids. And that can be easily rectified, I believe. And I think we'll see better results if we approach it that way. But so the point of Players First is just to give parents a way to recognize what the quality of a club is. A little bit like, say, Montessori in education, where there's a methodology and there's an approach and a philosophy, and it doesn't matter what the weekend results are so much as what happens the whole time you're with the club, every day at training. Yeah. So that's the idea of Players First.
Yeah. And we certainly have lost sight of what's most important, and again, the partnership between U.S. Club Soccer and La Liga is really trying to rectify some of those challenges. In a couple weeks after the Players First Summit, which again is going to be here in Miami in mid-December, is the United Soccer Coaches Convention in Baltimore, Maryland, where most of our country's youth coaches, both on the club side and the high school side, will be in attendance, and a very large organization. And as part of that, La Liga has an opportunity to do a couple different sessions where they'll do a field session and a panel session as well. So, Nico, do you want to talk a little bit about preview that event, or Hugo? Sure.
Our idea is always in this convention we present the planning of all the annual plan, and we explain the courses that we are going to develop with the help of US Club Soccer. I think the most important point for this year is the level 1, because it's the first year that we are going to manage this course in Spain. But also we are going to create new products or new actions, learning actions for coaches, coach education, related with talent identification, but also with master classes and workshops. These workshops and these master classes are going to be managed only for clubs, with our help, of course, but we are going to identify the topics that they want to learn more, for example, game model, goalkeeper training, and so on, and create short courses, 1 day only, one morning theoretical and one in the afternoon the practical session, and these are the complements or the new actions that we are going to manage with the help of US Club Soccer for this next year.
That's great. And this partnership's now been going on for 4 years, US Club Soccer and La Liga.
4.5.
4.5. Can you talk about the success you've seen to date, and then what the vision is for maybe the next 4.5 years?
Well, so just numerically, we've done courses involving over 1,500 coaches, as Hugo mentioned earlier. About close to 200 different clubs. Actually, the number is probably higher than that. Actually, I think it's close to 1,000 clubs. 500 clubs? I'm getting hand signals. But we're trying to promulgate this thinking. We're trying to get people to understand that there's a different way of doing their job, and there's a better way of doing their job. They have to create their own version of that. But this is intended to help them understand ways to organize their thinking around coaching. I mean, there's a lot of things that they take for granted that are just fundamental parts of the way they train kids that we don't do very well here. Periodization. There's a lot of talk now about physical periodization in U.S. coaching, but not so much about tactical or technical periodization. And it's all, it goes back to the whole approach that they approach this much more like you would approach an academic educational process. You know, Hugo has a doctoral degree. These are people that are working on this project and on the La Liga side have advanced degrees studying this subject matter. And that's just not something we do in the States. So there's a lot we can learn. I think that especially as the course presentation has evolved, I think it's gotten better and better, and it's more and more relevant to our coaches. I don't think our coaches in the newer version will be quite as intimidated as some of them, I think, were at the beginning of the courses. They looked at it and were like, wow, I have no idea what they're talking about. I've never done anything like this. I think that's changing now. It's the way the course is organized and presented. It's much more readily understandable, and I think our coaches will get a tremendous amount of benefit out of it.
Yeah. Nico, anything to add to that?
Just, I would like to highlight again that I agree with Kevin that more the year passes, the clubs are better, and we see that also when we approach some coaches, and some clubs at the beginning is, show me what you have. Now they come to us and they say, no, I would like to specifically work about talent identification, or how we can work about defense, or how we can, like, I don't know, manage like the periodization of their work for like the whole season, something like that. That I would say show us how they are really like, they now understand what are their problems and what they need to solve. And the other thing is, I think, regarding the level 1 that we're going to do in Spain is, when I see the facilities that the clubs have here, I'm always like, wow, that's amazing that we don't have that in Europe in general, but specifically in Spain. So see how a little club like Leganés can like manage the facilities that they have to develop like academy clubs from under 8 to under 17, under 19. It's something that I think is going to be also useful for the coaches in the sense of, okay, these guys with less resources can do a better job in terms of, I would say, methodology. So how can we like also learn about that? I think that's an important point that is going to be good for them when they are going to try to Spain.
Absolutely. So we've got just a few minutes left, and I want to leave time for questions from the crowd. So we've got a question way in the back. Thank you. Yep, that's fine. We can start here, right, and then we'll go back there.
We did a bait and switch on the poor gentleman over there.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Kevon Antonio Hidari, and I wanted to ask a couple of questions. One, which is in terms of La Liga's development and clubes, how much is your success tied to the performance of the national team? And then the other question I wanted, and to the performance levels of what they show on the other stages, not just at the club level. Segunda pregunta que tenía. Oh, the other question I had is, Kevin has been around the game a long time. Those of us who have played and coached in the United States see this and remember when parents used to yell, "Kick it," at trainings and stuff like that. I don't know, that still probably is a lot less, but it still happens. But I wanted to ask also, in La Liga, what is the role of letting the kids play pickup games and the psychological development of them being able to handle the pressure as they move up levels and handling the pressure of decisive games, etc.? Do you have a psychological element where you evaluate them from that sense? And how do you see the role of pickup games?
You have 5 questions there. Okay.
5 questions bundled. Thank you. Bundled into one.
Es como cuando los chavales empiezan a crear con más presión, a trabajar con más presión. Empiezo con la de la federación si quieres. So for the first one, related to the national team, if you want, I think it's key for the national team to have the talent that the clubs are developing in Spain. So we are not involved. We don't have academies as La Liga in Spain because the clubs do that by themselves. It makes no sense to have a La Liga academy there. What we are trying is to highlight their methodology or the methodology that we have developed in the US, but particularly we don't have a college model in Spain. So the big thing here is USSF takes the players from wherever they can, professional MLS, USL, other clubs, or even college. While in Spain, the only source of players that they have is the teams in Spain. So that's why it's so important, the methodology that the clubs are developing there, and that's why there's not a single club in Spain that doesn't have an academy. Because it's part of the model is to have an academy where they can, like, I would say, nurture their professional teams. If you have a team like Real Madrid or Barcelona that have a bigger budget, it's easier for them maybe, or they are more used to buy other players from outside. But when you see cases like Villarreal, Espanyol, or even Athletic de Bilbao that was telling their story yesterday here, they are basically based on the players that they develop from scratch till the professional team. And that's really important.
Dejarlo jugar en la calle antes de, como parte del entrenamiento. The academy and the pickup games, how is that factored into the academy?
Hugo is going to ask you that
practice.
Yes, I understand. Now, this is a good question because always when we organize a meeting with the technical directors of the clubs, always we are saying that we are losing the football in the street. And this is the base to a good technique, is a good tactical knowledge and so on. And nowadays it's very common in the clubs to complement the activity in the training session of the club with a free activity. But we believe this is a problem of the society. It's a cultural problem that we have international, more in Spain. Nowadays we are losing facilities to play free in our free time. But the clubs nowadays are taking into account this and create complementary activities like we call PEO, individual project of optimization, and they are doing individual training for the kids to complement this lost because they don't have this opportunity to complement the training activity, the training session in the club with the free matches in the street.
And a central element now of a lot of methodology and training young players, it's certainly part of the La Liga methodology is the whole concept of play, practice, play. La Liga is not alone in this. The French do it as well. Other people do this. But the whole idea is to begin the training session with the players enjoying themselves and playing so that right from the outset of the session, it's not like you're doing homework. You're actually enjoying yourself. You're doing the thing that you want to do, which is play soccer or play football.
Yes. This model, we call this model hole par hole. We start the training session with a match, and we try to provoke the mistake of the player in one term, tactical or technical, and we detect this problem or this mistake. We stop the session, and we create a progression, in exercises progression, and we finish with a match, hole par hole, and in this match, we try to resolve the problem that we see in the first action.
Probably have time for one or two more questions. Way in the back. Sorry, making you run there. It's pretty quick.
Thank you. Good afternoon, gents. The question is really for Mr. Payne. As a former youth coach, the U.S. model has been where you practice maybe once or twice, you travel to a tournament where you're playing 3-4 games that weekend, and one of those games being the championship game. We are seeing the NCAA moving towards where maybe stretching out the tournament, where those guys don't do that at that higher level. So now, at the youth level, we are picking up great methodology and everything else, but are you guys looking at more practices and perhaps just one game a week, or are we not there yet? Because we can have great methodology, but unfortunately, if we are wasting the athletes, it's not going to produce the quality players that we want. That's my opinion, but I don't know if you guys have any plans on that.
Yeah, so you're right. Certainly in the past, and I think today, too many players spend a lot more time playing games than they do training, and that doesn't mean that it's not the kind of games that Kevon's talking about. It's these are games that are actual competitions, and they might play, 5 times in a 2.5-day weekend. That's not healthy. We don't do that. Our competitions are limited to a maximum of 1 game a day, and in our higher level competitions, there's always at least 1 rest day built in. But I think that the amount of training time, the ratio of training time to game time, real competition time, should be more like 3 or 4 to 1, not the opposite, which is unfortunately is the case too often. I think there was.
Hi. I know that the topic is the importance of grassroots development projects, and all I have heard is the athletic part, nothing about the holistic model of athlete development. And here we're talking about kids 5 to 11. How about the emotional part, youth empowerment? How about sport parenting? I know Kevin touched upon the parents, but these are important parts of a youth grassroots development. And at that level, 5 to 11, we know that a very small percentage will end up go professional. So how do we prepare them from that age for that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and that's a lot of what the point of Players First is, to create an environment in which children that begin playing our sports stay with it for longer because they enjoy it. They enjoy the experience. Even though the odds are dramatically against them ever becoming players of any real consequence. That's just the nature of it. But that doesn't mean that they can't spend their life playing soccer and getting enjoyment out of it. They can become fans. They could become coaches. They can become referees. Right now, in this country, we lose almost 3 of every 4 kids who begins playing soccer quits by the time they're 13. That's just unacceptable. Just statistically, that means that we have lost Mia Hamms, we have lost, Alex Morgans, we have lost Landon Donovans, who left the game before anybody ever had a chance to figure out, including them, how good they could be. So we're trying to change that. That's a lot of the message that we're trying to get clubs to adopt. Don't just focus your attention on your top teams that are playing in your top competitions. Ensure that every kid that comes to your club to play every day has a great time and that they are afforded the opportunities to get better. And the kids will seek their own level, a combination of their physical ability, their ability to assimilate the information, and their commitment. And some kids don't want to put the time in to become great athletes. They have other things that they want to do, and that's all fine. But right now, too often, we get the cart before the horse. We're playing too many competitive games too early. We tell kids too often, sorry, you're not good enough. You're 10, but we're already going to tell you, you're not good enough to be on the good team. So that kid says, well, geez, maybe I should go, skateboard or play video games or do something else where I can feel like I have worth. So this is a big undertaking. I mean, this is trying to change the culture of youth sports because every sport has the same problem. But our effort to try to affect that is Players First. And La Liga is a big part of Players First because a lot of what La Liga is trying to help us do is to not only teach individual coaches to train their teams better, but to teach coaches in positions of responsibility how to teach all of the other coaches that report to them how to do a better job, how to provide a better experience, how to provide a better learning experience for the kids in their charge. And that's one of the things that we hope will have an effect on a long-term basis. We'll keep more kids involved in the game. They'll have a better experience throughout the process, and they'll learn more because the people that are teaching them have a better idea about what their job is and how to do it.
Thank you. We've got time. Last question here in the front.
Hello, my name is Jose Pablo Covarrubias. I'm with the FBA. My question is for Mr. Payne. With the system that the U.S. have, how are you going to promote kids' mentality to aim towards a professional level? Kids that are 14, 15, 16-year-olds are getting recruited by colleges at the freshman, sophomore, junior level, and I feel like they get contempt with already having a scholarship to go play at a good school, get education. And you see in Spain, in other countries, kids at 14, 15, 16-year-olds are already aiming to, in the next 2 years, become professionals. And in the United States, kids at 22, 23 are just becoming rookies towards another countries that are being established players. So how are you going to promote this system work with the league? Have an age rule where, you know, under 23 players must play a certain amount of minutes for you to have, otherwise you get point deductions. Things like this. How are you going to promote, work together with the league, with the youth development, and with clubs to promote this, and of course with the NCAA?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. When I was in Major League Soccer, when I was running DC United, I was on the competition committee from its inception. I was on the board for the first 18 years of the league. And I talked about this a lot. And the league staff actually did a lot of work a number of years ago to create a system that would require teams to play young players, a little similar to what Mexico did. And the coaches opposed it because they didn't want to run the risk of having to play a young player and then player makes a mistake and they lose their job. Because the coach, unfortunately, coaches lose their jobs all the time. And it's pretty silly. There's been a lot of studies done that show teams that have long-term success tend to have more stability in their coaching ranks. And there's almost unquestionably a link between stability in the, you know, in terms of the resources that you provide to create your team and the success of the team. So it's, right now, there are very few incentives in Major League Soccer to play young players. And it's a challenge. And it's not one that MLS is unaware of. But I don't think they know what the answer is yet. So stay tuned. I mean, I don't have a lot of influence over that anymore. But I think it is something that the United States has to tackle.
And with that, we'll conclude the panel. Kevin, Hugo, and Nico, thank you for your time and insights today, and appreciate you all attending this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.